What does Little Nightmares 2 hide from the player behind the scenes in the hospital? This game in its original state is dark, so there are quite a lot of things to see and discover throughout this area, with stuff being hidden off camera and out of bounds. We're going to be taking a closer look at it all, including some slow motion animations and creepy patients. And I'll also be getting Mono into some predicaments that we normally never see him in. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of Little Nightmares 2, Chapter 3, The Hospital. As always, I'll hit you with a brief summary of the first part of this next area before breaking it. We had just escaped the terrifying teacher with a neck that just keeps going. Chapter 3 then begins as we enter the hospital. We can see that bad things are clearly taking place here, and likely still are, as we pass by what appears to be a lifeless body in a wheelchair that's in the background. The first obstacle we encounter is in this big room, where Mono nearly falls to his death. 6 will lead the charge though, as we make our way up these dangling beds. Once clearing this room, we'll find ourselves needing to use this battery that's plugged into this socket here. This will be a repeating theme throughout this chapter, as we'll be encountering similar situations with these batteries. This elevator starts to feel a bit sus, as it begins to lose its hold, prompting us to quickly escape through this vent. We'll then end up acquiring a much needed tool for this dark adventure, a flashlight, which so happens to help us find the first glitching remains of this chapter in the very next room. It'll be standing next to this red wagon, as you can see. Traversing through some dark halls will lead us into this room, where we'll need one of these cans from this vending machine to progress. However, continuously dispensing cans from this machine will unlock the achievement Hunger. Moving on though, we'll once again have what appears to be a painful experience with this TV. Like the previous instances with these TVs, we'll get pulled up by 6 before reaching the door. It's here though that we'll see we're in a big lobby area with these weird mannequins and an elevator that will end up needing 2 batteries to operate. So heading over this way, we'll find an X-ray machine that ends up helping us find a key that we'll need. Turning it on and holding 6's hand like so will unlock the X Best Friends achievement. Also, a clue to where the key's location is can be seen on the back wall here, appearing to be in a stuffed animal. Going into the next room, you'll want to grab the farthest right stuffed animal, as that'll be the one with the key. Using the X-ray machine will confirm this. Before doing that, there is a hat we can acquire in here though, which is located up here. It's the stuffed bear hat, which will unlock the half hat achievement. We're going to want to take this stuffed animal to this elevator though, which will take us down to this incinerator room. Throwing it in here and turning it on will incinerate it so we can acquire the key within, along with unlocking another achievement, being Toys Are for Kids. Heading back up and then up these stairs, we'll be able to proceed through this locked door now. Let's go back to when we entered this hospital though, and take another look at what we just went through. Coming back, we can see how the beginning is loaded in. There isn't too much going on out of bounds here though. However, we can take a closer look at these patients, as they are called. It's hard to tell just how much of these horrific creatures are human or something more sinister. But as most players will know, we'll be encountering more lively patients further into this chapter. So let's enjoy the harmless ones while we can. I ended up deleting this door to find that Mono can walk back here, but that's about all we can do. Aside from eventually falling through the floor, and into the great beyond that is. I tried getting myself over onto this particular patient's bed with Mono, but had no luck. So I carried on, as I casually attempted to make my own paths with 0 luck. Watching the elevator fall with Mono and 6 still on it will show that Mono will clip through it, resulting with a never-ending fall into this black abyss. After acquiring the flashlight though, I decided to change the view, which basically makes the flashlight useless. It also will make certain parts more difficult as well. After deleting some doors and messing around though, we can see that they clearly lead to nowhere, as we take a look at the overall area with the camera. However, this is where I noticed something odd. It appeared to be a screen filter of some sort that's out here in front of the map. I'm not entirely sure what it's for, but maybe you could hazard a guess in the comments. Moving on though, more of these patients will be revealed once having this interaction with the TV, which will warp us up to this hallway above the TV's location. I went into big boy mode here, which does let us see how Mono is currently in this televised state, but once getting ripped out of the TV by 6, Mono's size returns to normal, along with the televised appearance fading away. The X-ray machine was interesting while taking a closer look at it, as it appears that the visual effect within the machine is confined inside it. As you can see, the skeleton of 6 will move with the camera. Coming down and putting the stuffed animal inside this incinerator though, we'll see that once we turn it on, a fiery spotlight will shine on the door, with the items that were placed inside simply disappearing, as the key that we'll need appears in their place. Zooming out from here, I noticed there's what appears to be popcorn right outside this incinerator. We can also find the toy that 6 threw in there as well, out on this white platform. This popcorn will make more sense as to why it's here in a little while, but now it's time to make our way through this locked door and carry on. So unlocking and making our way through this door, we'll see that there's clearly a mad doctor of some sort that resides here, as there's tons of prosthetic parts hanging all about. Out in the hallway just after this first room, if we head back where more of these limbs are stored, we'll find a glitching remain that we can collect. Going through this door 6's help is where we want to proceed though. There's a partial body strapped to a table in here, and once trying to proceed, the hand of this body will begin to freak out as it breaks off the body and scurries off into the darkness. Venturing deeper into this room, we'll be able to hear this hand rummaging around in the background. Dropping down at this point though, is where the hand will come out, as it will try to grab us. We basically want to keep away from it as we climb our way up here and out of the room. It will continue to follow Mono up until we make our way out of the vent and into this hallway. Naturally, I just kept running, as I thought it may have been still pursuing me. However, it's at this point where we can hear it and see that it's up in the vents above us now, as we run for our life. Eventually dropping down from the vents, we'll want to dodge it and keep pushing forward. This is where we'll have to face off with its wannabe thing from the Addams family. Each successful hit with a sledgehammer will cause it to retreat. Once killing it though, if you repeatedly strike it, you'll get the achievement and stay dead. But now we can grab this battery and move on. This follows with us regrouping with 6, as she's creepily playing with a prosthetic limb, but now we have one of the 2 batteries we need for this elevator. You'll want to use the battery over on this door, granting us access to this next area in which we need to go through. Remember that popcorn we found outside the incinerator? Well, there's a corn cob here that we can pick up, and if we take it down to the incinerator and turn it on, we'll hear a bunch of popping as we unlock the achievement, Popcorn. Going inside, we'll find the popcorn, as some of them are still popping. If only we had some butter. Getting back on track though, this is where we'll encounter the first hostile patient, as it'll begin pursuing us once the light is turned off. However, the flashlight is our savior, as it will stop them in their tracks. The light is their weakness. Accuracy and patience will help us bypass these hostile creatures, as we'll be evading multiples of them in the next area. It's truly a panic-inducing section of the game, if I had to say so myself. Once getting to this point though, I believe we're safe, as we'll now go back and take a closer look at everything we just endured. So coming back to where we got this key to open this locked door, we'll see that we're in over our head, with legs and arms dangling about. Zooming out here, it's fair to speculate that there's over hundreds of these parts in all the rooms in which we'll end up walking through. There's also a random box of parts that can be found right outside in front of the map. Watching this hand break out the body we come across is of course terrifying. However, if we stay on it as it makes its way into the background, we'll see it come to a stop where it will sit indefinitely. This is when I realized that there are multiple hands being used for this entire scene, as you can see. This one down the end of this room will just be chilling as it waits for us to proceed. Anyone care for a massage? So I initiated this interaction with this thing and just ran around, trying to plan my next move. That's when I remember there's technically an invisible wall between our view and the room we're in, bringing into question whether or not our hand friend will leap out of the room if we delete this invisible wall. It absolutely does, as you can see, which I found to be hilarious. We can see that the hand doesn't disappear either, as it falls forever into the great beyond. On the other hand, no pun intended, when it grabs Mono, it almost looks as if it's suffocating him, making for a gruesome death. So this prompted me to go into big boy mode to see if it couldn't handle size, sort of like the bullies in the previous chapter. It did appear to be confused at first, like it wasn't able to attack Mono. However, this doesn't last long. It ends up grabbing us and automatically adjusts in size while doing so, beating us at our own game. With my next attempt, I of course decide to go small this time, thinking for sure that it won't be able to get us this time around. It makes a heroic leap to start, as it completely misses Mono. Immediately after this though, you'll see that it ends up matching our size as it proceeds to destroy us. So the Ant-Man suit is definitely a no-go with this deadly hand assassin. Moving on, when we make our escape through this vent, we can see that the hand will simply end up disappearing as the vent cover moves on its own. Following this is where we'll see that the hand is up above in the vents as it stalks us. Coming up here though, we'll see that there's no hand in these vents. It is only until we see it drop down when the hand actually comes into play. It drops in from above the room itself, as you can see. This hand will scurry off into the back here where it ends up disappearing. All the while, another hand awaits for our arrival over by the battery where we end up fighting it. This one is another hand that we do not interact with, as it too scurries away behind these boxes, where it resides indefinitely, prompting yet another hand which we'll end up fighting. Not today though, as I've had enough of these darn hands. Despite the hand flying off the edge, the fighting music will continue to play, but this doesn't appear to make a big sequence break, in case you're wondering. This falls meeting back up with 6, who is, we'll just say, enjoying herself? I mean, she had to hear me struggling in the other room, right? Why is she no help? Anyways, ignoring the red flags, let's move on. In the room where the corn cob is, we can see some pictures up on the wall, which I found to be interesting. Displaying a patient with no arms, and another picture displaying an operation taking place with students observing. It's time to mess with this angry patient though. I once again pull out the Ant-Man suit, really thinking that this could help us avoid death this time around. I mean, I'm towering over this fool. There's no way. Joke's on me though, as the patient grabs a hold of Mono's insides and proceeds to delete us. Going small does seem to delay the patient's reaction time with pursuing Mono, but ultimately results in death as well. It'll simply scoop us off the ground and keep us forever. Frustrated with this patient, I delete the door from where we came, which resulted in messing up the patient and how it wanted to get to us. I win! I guess? With that though, I went ahead and deleted it and moved on, only to get jump scared by the patient I thought I had deleted, as it reappeared for its final attempt at grabbing us. I found that even though they can grab us as a tiny man, it seems to be the most effective way to mess around with the patients as they struggle to lock onto me. Let's carry on as we normally would. Moving forward, we're going to take this vent here, which will lead us into, from the looks of it, a smelly room. There will be a piece of cheese that's next to the bed in here, which we're going to want to take with us. Entering this hallway, we'll want to take the piece of cheese back this way and head through the first door to Mono's left. There will be a room here with a hole in the middle of the floor where you'll want to throw the cheese into. This will give us the achievement Objection. There's also a glitching remain here, which we'll go ahead and obtain as well. From the looks of this room though, it appears someone spent quite a while in here, if I had to guess. We're now going to endure a dire scene as a barrage of hands begin to break through the doors as we're running down this hall. It's quite honestly terrifying, and it follows with patients beginning to break out the doors as they horrifically pursue us. The flashlight is once again our best friend, as it can make this chase scene a tad easier on us. This will follow with us entering a shower area, but if you head back to this corner first and move this box of soap bars, we can go through this vent, leading us to a padded room where the final glitching remain of this chapter can be found, hence unlocking the Sick Kids achievement. Back in the shower though, we'll want to throw the soap at this button to proceed. Here, there'll be a patient that's sitting in a wheelchair in the center of the room, which we'll need to make our way up and through this window in the door. Going back and turn the light off will get this patient off the chair, allowing us to move it and make our way out. Mono will then have another run for his life moment, and we'll have to evade quite a few hostile patients, as we then slide to safety into the next room. There will be a ball in here that we can pick up and toss at the patients that are now reaching through the boards, which will unlock the Medicine Ball achievement. We'll now want to turn this power on though, which will blow a fuse and give us the battery we've been looking for. Six will be waiting for us as we hand off the battery, so she can get us out of here, as you can see. We can now finally head back to this elevator, where we can now plug in both batteries, allowing us to use it as we head further down into this horrific hospital. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything we just went through though. Heading back, we had just escaped some patients, and when loading in, this one in particular can be found stored right outside the map. This followed with me trying to go back here into these halls, which didn't last long, as there was no collision back here, hence falling through the map and into the abyss. However, we can now get a better look at this room, where it appears that someone didn't make it to the toilet in time. How lovely. Once entering this room though, we can see that the arm-filled hallway has loaded, along with a portion of the hospital remaining further back. Getting a look back behind these doors though is like a fever dream, if I must say so myself. We can find various patients back here twitching about as they clip through one another. There's also a torso in here which will flail about, which sadly is basically all it would be able to do, I guess. What a life that must be. The arms that end up bursting through the doors as we run down this hall can be seen here as they wait for us to trigger them. This makes sense that they are merely just shoulders and arms, as we'd obviously never see this normally. You can also see that some of the arms at the higher parts of the doors are already reaching through before we proceed. However, there is one lonely, fully loaded patient in this area amongst the arms. Before proceeding, I threw this cheese in the hole again to see if anything occurred within the hole. Turns out that the cheese simply falls forever into the great beyond. Or at least, that's what I thought initially, as I ended up seeing it on this white slab once I progressed a little further. To make this part a bit easier though, I waved my hair back and forth as I became a tiny man. It went smoothly as I predicted, with the hands being unable to reach me. But then this patient bursted out the door and snatched me up. You may have already guessed, but becoming a big boy is not the way to go here, as you can clearly see. So with the help of the flashlight, I once again cautiously made my way through this part with much better results. We gotta give Mono some credit here though, because personally, I'm just not sure I'd be able to go through with half the stuff this boy has endured since the beginning of this little yet big nightmare. Deleting all these homeboys though, I came back here to find this one patient in particular that doesn't seem to react to Mono or his light. I also found myself being able to enter this room with the patients that are twitching and flailing all about. Granted, it may have something to do with my size, but at this point, I wasn't trying to find out otherwise. So let's carry on. We're now at the part with the wheelchair patient, which doesn't have much to show outside of normal gameplay. So I went ahead and destroyed the patient, and then before carrying on, took a closer look at this one that's in the bathtub in the background. We once again have to evade a swarm of patients in this large, dark room, which doesn't have much to hide when brightening up the view. However, I did find this particular patient entertaining with its big chompers. He's all smiles, as you can see. Once we slide under these boards though, we'll see the patients reach through as they try to grab us. Like the terrifying hallway from before though, we'll see that there's a bunch of floating arms during this, as they'll spawn in once reaching this point. Being a jerk, I tried locking Six in this room, but she managed to slip out just in time during my initial attempt. Unfortunately for Six though, she can't teleport like Mono, and the deed is done. She'll just sit there as we utilize the batteries to get the elevator opened. But like in many cases with trying to ditch her, the joke's on me, as the elevator will simply not activate without her. Once we take the elevator down though, we can see how this portion of the level will unload, with some objects that are left behind, simply falling into the great beyond. We're now deeper into this hospital though, so let's carry on as we normally would. Pushing on, it's extremely dark down here, as we light the way with our flashlight through this prosthetic-filled hallway. This will eventually lead to a broken door that is boarded up, as the morgue freezer appears to have something inside it that wants out. Six will end up holding the door, as another killer hand comes out after us. Getting 2 successful hits on the hand results with Six being unable to hold the door, as a second hand appears. It's 2 versus 1 now, but with some constant mobility, we can make quick work of these pesky hands. Progressing, we'll see some familiar faces on the wall, which leads to Mono and Six meeting who I can only assume is the maker of them, and everything we've encountered in this chapter thus far. The Doctor. This bloated cadaver gives off Boomer vibes from Left 4 Dead, if you were to ask me. This giant terror moves about as if he's Spider-Man, as he traverses along the ceiling, making for a peculiar antagonist. We'll have to sneak by him as he works on one of his current patients. This follows with a room where we can see he's taking care of multiple patients, as we'll need to grab one of these objects in the back of the room so we can open the door to the next area, all while evading his sight. Opening the door will alert him, forcing us to hide under this bed as he comes in to investigate. He'll eventually leave the area, allowing Mono and Six to progress up here and above the ceiling. This will lead to another morgue-like area where we need to pull this out here and then allow Six to push us back in as we enter the other side. Before doing anything, if you come over to this particular freezer and go into it, you'll find another collectible hat, which appears to be a mask of bandages. The key we need is here, so we'll go ahead and move these like so. Now we can jump over, then climb up and drop down as we obtain the key. We then meet up with Six as we unlock and make our way through the door. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything we just ventured through though. After coming out of the elevator, we can get a better look at everything with the view being brightened up. However, there isn't too much revealed here, even with taking a look at bounds as well. Coming up to the area where we have to fight these 5-fingered demons, we can see the one that's in the freezer is just calmly waiting, as Six struggles to hold the door from opening. We can also see the other one load in under the stretcher during all of this. I ended up making a mistake though, by doing what I had done before, with deleting the invisible barrier so the hands will leap out of the room and to their death. Once getting them to do this, I quickly realized that I broke a way out of here, as I wasn't able to progress through the door. The hands are not technically dying like before, so there's no win condition triggered. We can observe them falling endlessly into this black abyss. They look like dots from here, but we can zoom way down here to see them as they fall past us one by one. However, I decide to just delete the door and move on without Six. The Doctor is, just as terrifying as you probably imagine, as you can see. Going above the ceiling, we can see his feet and legs protruding through as they move about, with the feet doing some intense stretching exercises. This particular patient that the Doctor has on the table was interesting to watch as he works on it. It has a baby face, making it automatically creepy, but we can see when he pops the head off, it actually goes inside the body of the patient. Then we'll see that the Doctor will grab a new head out of this drawer as it appears in his hand. This new head that the Doctor puts on the body doesn't come from nowhere though, as we can find it sitting out of bounds near the room, waiting to transfer to his hand. I end up getting in a pickle with the Doctor as I scramble to keep away from the monster. Then Six randomly shows up like she's gonna help or something, only for the Doctor to end up grabbing me through the shelves. Getting to where we need to hit the button to open the door and progress, I decide to just delete the door, so that we wouldn't alert the Doctor when proceeding. He'll remain in that room instead of coming to investigate, like we saw before. But once we get far enough, well, the room unloads, resulting with our dear large friend plummeting into the great beyond. He leaves a trail of debris as he falls, and it was hilarious to watch. Sayonara, sucker. Joke's on me though, as he reloads back in and takes this peculiar path through the next room, as he goes out of bounds and then slowly slides further back behind the level. Turns out that this doctor was a second one that loaded in though, as we can see the other one still falling way down below us. He will just chill here indefinitely until we progress, as you can see. This is what peak performance looks like, rolls and all. I deleted some doors as I progressed, finding myself still unable to pass, even with this locked door as well. The padlock will remain, but as you can see, we shall not pass. So I warped over to the key to obtain it. Like our hats in the previous chapter, when picking up the key, we can see that it too will shrink as Mono puts it on his person, eventually disappearing. However, now we can open this non-existent door and stop here, as we continue on as we normally would. We'll now head up here and into some more vents, where we'll see that we need a battery to proceed. Heading to the room where the doctor is conducting some more business, you'll see the battery we require, which is located within one of the morgue freezers. So we'll sneak Mono and 6 over to the other side of this room, where we can then get a boost from 6 to enter. There's a patient here who's hooked up to a heart monitor. The patient is heavily breathing behind a hospital curtain, and looks like yet another miserable creature within this game. Becoming a little nightmare for this struggling patient, we're going to climb up here and into the ceiling, where we can now drop down and pull this lever. This will flatline the patient, hence grabbing the attention of our large friend, as he frantically comes in to try and remedy the situation. Successfully hiding under this rack will allow us to slip by, and back into this room where we can now retrieve this battery. Pulling this body out of the freezer, we can now make our way up and grab it. However, once we bring the battery over here to open the door, we will alert to the doctor, which follows with a chase. He'll plow through all the obstacles as he moves, and if we're not fast enough, we'll end up dead. We'll find ourselves reaching a cremation chamber if we evade the doctor, which we'll want to go into. The scene gets claustrophobic real quick, but if we act fast and make our way back out, like so, we can trap the doctor within. Now, we could turn it on and torch this fool, but if you decide not to and proceed with taking the elevator, you'll be granted the achievement, First Do No Harm. You also get the Hospitalized achievement for completing the chapter. So with that, let's go back for a final time and take a look at everything we just went through. We're gonna head back up and into these vents, where we'll see the rooms above are loaded in at this point. The doctor loads in when we're all the way up, but if we don't go into the room he's in right away, we'll see that he will stand by for us until we enter. He'll be in this consistent state of motion that appears as if he's revving a chainsaw, or perhaps having a mental breakdown. Regardless, it's a bit funny looking. Entering the room, he'll get to work, as he washes his hands. He'll grab parts of a patient and place it over here, eventually grabbing the saw in the sink. He carries it in a strange manner, and will begin hacking away at the body he had just pulled out. Taking a closer look at this patient that is struggling with its labored breathing was interesting, as I don't believe we ever saw a patient that was breathing prior to this. Seems the doctor is perfecting his art. At any rate, I wanted to get up on this bed with the patient, which we normally can't do, so I went up top, deleted a ceiling panel, and dropped in. Of course, the patient doesn't react to us, but here we are. Imagine struggling to live as a small child is on top of you going, well, like that. I imagine parents can relate to this. However, I went ahead and tried to get off the bed and thought I may have gotten myself stuck as I floated about. This was probably due to deleting the current though, if I had to guess. Pulling the lever, I went ahead and warped over back to this room to get a head start on the doctor. However, this resulted with, soft locking the doctor. We can watch as the patient flatlines and essentially dies, since the doctor didn't come over and pull the lever back up. He just remains in this frozen state, not moving at all. It could have had something to do with slowing the game down, but I can't be certain. Even 6 is confused with what's going on, as she panics and begins moonwalking in place. However, the doctor pulled a fast one on me, as he awakens from playing possum, ultimately tracking me down and capturing me. So this time, I let him tend to his patient, which is funny looking to see. Obviously, this makes sense, as the curtain should be here. Nevertheless though, still terrifying. So I deleted the patient to further frustrate our large friend, and went ahead and grabbed the battery. Putting the battery in, we can see him teleport back to this position, which then prompted me to teleport up in the ceiling where the patient is. Normally at this point he's chasing us. However, once the chase sequence began, he knew exactly where I was, as he did a 180 and beelines right for me. Joke's on him this time around though, as it appears he's unable to get me up here, thankfully. Whew. He'll just hilariously hang there like a cat, frustratingly trying to cough up a hairball. He will track me up here briefly once I start moving, but he ended up going back into the other room where he starts playing possum again. I pull the lever for a second time, thinking it may crash the game or something, but nothing happens. So at this point, I warp back to where he begins to chase us usually, only to find him going back to his normal routine, as if we haven't opened the door with the battery yet. Now I can go ahead and mosey on through this chase scene with no worry. Oh dang, I lied. He snapped back into his chase sequence. That's just great. So I unfortunately ended up doing this chase scene again, with 6 hilariously showing up out of nowhere toward the end of the chase. What I found interesting though, is that once we get the doctor inside the cremation chamber, we can see the doctor clip out of the chamber as it goes behind it. He'll sit here momentarily, but eventually will disappear. You can see the door banging still though, with no sign of the doctor anywhere. So I went ahead and lit the flames within, where we can see a warm glow of light that's inside, as 6 enjoys the deathly heat. Yet another red flag, perhaps? The deed is done though, as we've reached the end of Little Nightmares 2, Chapter 3, The Hospital. I hope you enjoyed this out-of-bounds adventure, which will be continuing soon as we enter Chapter 4, The Pale City. With that though, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!